Welcome to another episode of Not That Hard to Homeschool, the podcast for real people so that you can confidently, competently, and yes, even contentedly provide the high school education that is best for your teens and your family. I'm your host, Lisa Nehring from NotThatHardToHomeschool.com.
Ever feel like you are constantly reminding your teen about deadlines, meals, and responsibilities? What if stepping back could actually help them step up? Today, we're going to talk about the importance of fostering independence and promoting resiliency and self-advocacy as we set our kids up for success during their defining decade. Now, I have been talking about this book all week, The Defining Decade by Dr. Meg Jay. Highly recommend it. It is such a great book. As I've mentioned in the Facebook Lives I did last Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, really what she's talking about is that our 20s are all of our defining decades. And as I've been talking about, kids between birth and age 20, they go through developmental tasks. You know, there's like a certain time frame where we want the kids to be scooching and crawling and walking, and there's a time where we want them to be babbling and then imitating sounds and then making words and stringing words together to form a sentence. Those are all developmental tasks. As we head into our 20s, our developmental tasks change from by month or year, and they end up being decade long. So we have developmental tasks in our 20s, in our 30s, in our 40s, in our 50s, etc. And the defining task of the 20-year-old is to set themselves up familially and vocationally. But Dr. J, in this book, The Defining Decade, talks about some of the obstacles that our kids are running into, all the things that they need to do developmentally to really set themselves up for success as an adult. And what does success look like? Of course, it's going to mean different things to different people, but there's general ideas of success. And we want to make sure that our kids actually have the life that they're called to live, that they're meant to live, and that they're qualified to live, right? And so how do we set our kids up for a successful defining decade? That's what I've been talking about all week. So I took a lot of her concepts and I just backward engineered it. What does that mean when our kids are in their tween and teen years? How do we set them up for success as 20-year-olds, even when they're between 12 and 18 or 19? So I have done a series. There's tips every single day. If you missed any of them, go back and hit them. You can find them on the Facebook page under videos, and I would love to know what you think and what your ideas are about that too. So today we're going to talk about fostering independence and how really setting your kids up for a really successful defining decade means helping them to become independent while they're younger. So allowing our teens to make decisions and experience natural consequences. There's a Jewish saying that says a mom is only as happy as her saddest child. And I think that that is very true. And yet we have to allow our kids to make decisions where we see the failure that is imminent. Failure is part of learning, right? So we need to help them manage their schedule, cook meals, solve small problems, and then give them opportunities to do it on their own, see how much they can go forward with those tasks. If they make if they make a mistake or there's a failure, if they burn the whole meal, how to start over, how to regroup. If they're in charge of cooking dinner because you're doing a cooking or baking unit study, then have them be in charge of the dinner. And if they ruin the whole dinner, that's a fantastic opportunity to foster independence. The dinner is ruined. You don't have money to go out to eat, or maybe you do. Do you go out to eat? Do you just thaw corn dogs? Do you eat cereal for breakfast? What is the pivot? And that is a huge part of learning. That's what we all do as adults every single day. It didn't work this way. How do we make it work that way? And helping your kids understanding that part of independence means things are mostly figure outable, right? So those are skills that are also going to build confidence and resiliency. I just heard about this teen whose parents gave her $300 a month starting at age 7. That's pretty young in my opinion. But at age 7, her parents gave her $300 a month and she had to pay for everything. She had to put 50% away in long-term savings. That means she was saving for a house at 7. She had to put 15 or 25% into short-term savings. I think it was 15%. And that means she used everything out of that. So if they went to McDonald's, she had to purchase her own McDonald's food. If she wanted lessons, she had to pay for her own lessons. If she wanted to buy a horse, she had to buy her own horse, etc. And then they put aside 10% for tithe. So it was a really strict financial schedule. And we did talk about finances yesterday, so this ties in really, really perfectly because they all tie in together, right? But really helping your kids develop a sense of financial independence, but also other kinds of independence. Our oldest daughter actually went to Europe at 12. Now, she went with extended family, and so it was a very safe trip, but she traveled internationally without her family of origin at age 12, fostering independence. I did a podcast on the month I spent in the High Uintas backpacking. It's a wilderness area in Utah with a group from college, and I actually turned 18 on that month-long trip. And it was such a great trip because for part of the trip they just broke us up into pods. So it was me and my little pod, my group members. We had a compass, we had maps, and we figured it out, and we got to the next place on our own. Talk about a sense of having independence fostered. And these are transferable skills. If you succeed at something like that, you know that you can succeed at other things. So we need to give our kids opportunities to do really hard and sometimes crazy things and see what kind of success rate our kids have. And if they're not successful, how do you regroup from that? Now, going out into the wilderness, I wouldn't stick a 12-year-old out in the wilderness alone with a map and a compass. However, doing some crazy hard things like that really does, even if they're with a family member, traveling is so helpful for kids to foster independence, regardless of how you do it or where you go. If it's a wilderness situation or a city, which can be the concrete jungle, just a great opportunity for kids to really build independence. And the research is in that families that travel together have a greater sense of unity together and cohesion. And I think that's because you're problem solving. Where are we going to go? Where are we going to spend our money? Are we going to go to the amusement park? Are we going to go to the fancy dinner? Are we going to skip the national park and just go to the mall? You're doing problem solving and pivoting all day long. And you have budget constraints, you have travel constraints. And so I think travel is a really great way to honestly foster independence with your kids and really give them that sense of budgeting, which we talked about yesterday, giving them a smorgasbord of experiences, which we talked about the very first day, helping them network and connect, the power of weak ties, goal setting, financial literacy, all those things. So travel, just love it. It's such a great way to teach so many different things. But we really have to help our kids foster independence while they're with us and young, as much as that can be like a shift and change for us. Because it's really going to set them up for independence in their defining decade as 20-year-olds. And a lot of kids in their 20s right now, more kids are not leaving home. I'm not judging whether this is good or bad. I'm just observing it. It's a descriptor. More kids are staying home, and we have multi-generational families than any time since the Great Depression. So there are more kids in their late 20s. They're married, actually, some of them, with kids, some of them that are living in their parents' home. Now, that is serving two purposes. Parents can't really always afford to go to nursing homes, but they need somebody to clean out their gutter. And young kids are having a hard time buying their first home. So, it serves more than one purpose. But we do really want to help our kids foster independence. And there's such a movement right now of I'm fiercely independent, I don't need anybody. And I think a better way to say that is interdependence. Because, listen, even when I was on that backpacking trip and it was just the 5 of us, we were on our own for 3 days, we were very interdependent on each other. Who had the map, who got the water, who cleaned the water, who was doing the navigating, and all those kind of things. And then I shared this on the podcast. One of our teammates got super, super sick. So he had diarrhea through most of that trip, and we weren't leaving him behind. There were wolves all over the mountains, and we needed to stay together as a group, but we also had to make time to meet our next rendezvous point so people didn't worry and send out search teams. So, wow, we really had a lot of independence fostering opportunity during that trip. Okay, so we really want to foster independence. The other thing we really want to do during our kids' tween and teen years is promote resiliency and self-advocacy. And of course, I've touched on this with the $300 a month and the decision-making that goes into all that as a 7-year-old, and the trip to the High Uintas. How do we promote resiliency and self-advocacy for our kids? And I think this is a very important concept to really think about as parents. Angela Duckworth wrote the book Grit. I absolutely adore that book. I I bought several and gave them away to friends because I thought it was such a powerful, important concept. We have to help our kids develop resiliency. We all know that kids and young adults, there's this real sense of fragility in young adults these days, that they're so easily offended, or they feel wounded, or they have a feeling, and that's definitions, and now that's reality. And resilience is really like being informed by your feelings, but also putting them in their proper place and not making that a defining point in your life that can actually cause ruination to yourself and others. So developing resiliency, I think this is a really important concept. If you're not sure where to start with this, go to Angela Duckworth's website. It might be called Grit. You can just look up her name. She has TED Talks, and I highly recommend her book, Grit. But she has a grit test. It's a self-scoring test. How gritty are you? How gritty are your kids? And I think it's important to really think about that, because grit goes along with like work ethic, getting things done, completing tasks, those kind of things. Now, one of the big projects our family did was we bought a very dilapidated acreage in South Dakota. And so we have spent the last 20 years really pulling it back together, and it's worth far more than we originally bought it for a number of different reasons. But our kids really learned hard work. In fact, as a joke, we called it Hard Work U. Not much of a joke, honestly, but really, how are you going to advocate for your kids to build work ethic and to build grit? One of my grandpas, my husband and I were talking about this today, just with the changes in the second industrial revolution and what we're seeing now, because we're seeing so many AI. We were talking about tripping. There's now robots that can trip and right themselves. Now, that is a really difficult task for a mechanical thing and a robot. And so we were just talking about how the shift from horses to automobiles would have been really a paradigm shift for people. I don't think the second and third, or the third and fourth industrial revolutions were that. The third and fourth. Wait, let's see. That was the second one when automobiles came on. So I don't think the third was that disruptive, because it was when the computer age was introduced. But so many businesses were using computers first, so it kind of like slid into society. And we had electricity and cell phones or phones and that kind of thing. So it was kind of like an easy segue. It wasn't as disruptive as going from horse to automobile. But I think that was even small potatoes compared to where we're at now with the fourth industrial revolution and AI and robotics and the precision economy and the impact. There's just so many changes that are coming so fast. And so our kids really do need to have resiliency and self-advocacy. The other thing too, they're going to live and work in the global gig economy. And I have two kids for sure that work in the global gig economy. One of them travels, but they're both on their computers. They can work from anywhere, and there's so many blessings to that, and there's so much challenge to that, right? Because they're not in an office. They're not sitting around the water cooler. They don't have a built-in community at work to go out with and to network with and things like that. So while it can be really beneficial and provide so much freedom, it also provides some challenges. So how do you build grit in those situations? And then my one son, he's traveling all over the place, and that can be its own kind of interesting thing too. It's very exhausting, and he loves it. He gets to meet people from all over, but it's also really taxing. So having resiliency allows you to do so many different things. But how are you building resiliency in your kids, and how are you teaching them to self-advocate? Now, I think this is a super important concept too. Angie Farrell first brought it up at True North because she said when the kids had problems, she would email them and email the parents, and then the parents would email her back. So we started a policy at True North that if you have a problem in class, we really want the kids to actually talk to the teachers. And if the teachers have a problem, we want them to go to the kids first, because we want to teach our students to self-advocate. And we're a very kind and gracious and community where we're going to give the kids as much grace as they need while still holding clear standards and policies. So if they come to me and say, the policy is it's not an excused absence if I go on vacation, but listen, this vacation just came out of the blue because my grandma said, hey, I'm going to pay for you to come here, so come, and we decided to go. But I really want to know if you will not dock my points for that vacation because it was a last minute decision to go with grandma or stay home and not lose those points. That's the kind of self-advocacy I'm talking about. So how do we teach our kids to be self-advocates? And by self-advocate, I don't mean crying online or playing the victim. That's not self-advocacy. That is victim claiming, and that is actually scamming people. We've all seen that. And I mean, there's a well-known case in the last couple days. And it's really not self-advocacy. It's really having a pity party. It's really wanting people to pay for your emotions. And it's the opposite of self-advocacy, honestly, because you're not really taking responsibility for what's happening, and you're not negotiating a way forward. And that is really what I'm talking about with self-advocacy, is teaching our kids how to negotiate. One of the things I've learned the last couple of years just running a business and talking to different people about their businesses and bringing vendors on board and actually buying a company is the art of negotiation. And I don't consider myself really a world-class expert on it or anything, but one of the things that I've really learned, and I love this concept, and I never knew it before, and it seems so simple, is that you can make up stuff to negotiate with. You can say, okay, you want that, and I don't really want to give you that, but you know what? I have this thing over here that you didn't even know about, and I want to give you that. Does that work out for you? And so you can be so creative in self-advocacy if you learn how to negotiate well. And the art of negotiation truly, truly is an art. I'm in a group with this gentleman, and he is such a master negotiator. He advocated for this one company to go from $15 million in sales to $43 million in sales. Now, they really ramped up that business, and they did some shuffling and added tech and a whole bunch of other things. But that's some pretty crazy negotiation. He negotiated with the owner, and then he negotiated with the buyer, first to ramp up the company, and secondly to get the highest price possible. So the art of negotiation is, you know, they do this in diplomacy all the time, they do this in politics all the time, and they do it in business all the time, and it's actually a career path. But I think really it's a skill we all need. It's a skill like sales. I did a Facebook Live last year on the one skill your kids need to know before they graduate, and that is the skill of sales. And that's just the art of persuasion. The art of persuasion is, can I lay out a logical plan that makes sense that you want to buy into? And we're all persuasion experts on one level or another. We're either really good at it or not so good at it. We actually start off with teaching the persuasive essay at True North because it's such a powerful tool. And if you can write a good persuasive essay, you can give a good persuasive speech, and you can do self-advocacy for yourself. So check out Julia Jinx's Junior High US Lit and Comp class, because we teach the persuasive essay in that class, and it's a fantastic foundational class. I think every student should take it, because if you can write a persuasive essay, again, you can speak persuasively, and then you can learn more and more about the art of negotiation. Believe me, there's tons of books about it. There's podcasts, there's free classes at Hillsdale and everywhere else, but it's really an important skill for your kids to learn. So fostering independence, promoting resiliency, and self-advocacy, these are all super important skills that your kids need to learn, I think, before they hit their 20s. They're so important that they could change their lives. So far, in this little short series on setting your kids up for success as they go into the defining decade, again, is encouraging an exploration of interests. And like I've said before, your high school years should be a time when it's just like a big smorgasbord for your kids to really dive into different types of academic pursuits, extracurriculars, even job or work or community service. Let them just play around. And sometimes something's really going to stick, and they're going to be like, oh, I want to do that for the rest of my life or for the next 5 years. And that's great. But if not, it is totally okay. We don't need them to decide what they're going to do vocationally for the rest of their life when they're 14 or 15. For some kids, that's going to happen, but not for a lot of us. And actually, you know, I graduated from college not really sure, and have worked pretty much on and off since I graduated from college. So, you know, there's hope for everybody. The second point is teaching networking skills and helping our kids practice connecting with others. And even if we have to do role playing with them, how do they connect? How do they do small talk? How do they write a personal letter? How do they write a business letter to a teacher? Encouraging them to participate in community events, etc. and also the power of weak ties. I love this concept. I think it's super important. It's really been a game changer in our personal life, and I hope you go check out what that really means. Go look at that video from a couple days ago. Number 3 is goal setting, setting smart goals, long-term goals, short-term goals, taking the long view. What is going to happen years from now when I'm an adult, and how do I get there? What actual lifestyle do I really want to have, and how am I going to pay for it? And then modeling financial literacy for our kids. I think giving your kids a certain amount of money every month when they're really young is a great way to do that. And then fostering independence and promoting resiliency and self-advocacy. Like I said before, The Defining Decade by Dr. Meg J. Phenomenal book. I hope you go get it. It's one of my faves this year. I think it might be my favorite so far, even though I've read some really good books so far. And last year I loved The End of Average by Todd Rose. I can't get over that book. Go get Grit. It's another good one. And then tomorrow we're going to talk about academic and career choices and being intentional with our kids with those things, and some tips and tricks that you can do to help them start understanding who they are and where they want to go. So if you have any questions about this or comments, I would love to hear from you guys. What has been helpful? What is not? What are your thoughts about the defining decade? Do you agree that the 20s really are a defining decade? Or another interesting question is, how did they define your adult life? How did the 20s define your adult life? I know for us, we got married, we had our first 2 kids, we traveled from Indiana to Connecticut and then to California, so 2 big cross-country moves. We finished college, we started graduate school. I mean, there was so many crazy things we did, and we traveled the country. I mean, on and on and on. So would love to hear from you guys. What crazy thing did you do in the 20s, and how did it define you as an adult? I'll be back tomorrow. It might be tomorrow, but it might be Monday, to talk about career exploration and really what we can do as parents to help our kids really start thinking about what they want to do vocationally, or what skills they need to set them up to launch vocationally, whether they have a defined career field or not. Again, our kids are going to work in probably 12 to 15 different jobs over the course of their vocational life, and they might be in completely different sectors, partly because we are going to be living longer, our kids will be living longer, they'll be working later in life, and life is expensive, right? Let's just face it. So how do we set them up for success? You guys, this has been a blast. I love talking about books, and we'll be doing more of this. Go check out the videos that you've missed so far, and I'd love to hear from you. I will see you soon. Again, my name is Lisa Nehring from True North Academy. Just, by the way, we had such a fun day. I think I've been on Zoom on and off since 9:15. We always have an admin meeting in the morning, and these are some of my favorite people in the world. They're so talented. The True North team truly is a talented group of individuals. They're so passionate about education and providing a really rich experience for our kids and collaboration for our kids and our students. We are probably going to be doing a live event this year in Pennsylvania. Super, super psyched about that, because we want to meet you guys. And we will be at 11 conferences this year. And so we hope to see you. I will be posting that on the website sooner than later, and head on over to Instagram. We'll probably have a couple posts about where we'll be and who will be there and the different workshops that we'll be hosting. And we're going to be having more info meetings. We had another one today, super, super fun. We've done some new teacher training. And so, yeah, lots of great stuff coming up. You guys, we'd love to have you part of the True North Academy community. We're an amazing community of the super talented people from around the world. And I'm not just talking about the teachers, but our parents, our families, our students. They are so talented and just so fun to be around. It's really an honor and a joy to work with each family. I will be back. Hope you guys have a great, great weekend, and talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.